Get ready to hear about the next level in content marketing.
You're listening to the Keep Optimizing podcast to increase your traffic, improve your conversion rates, and grow your profits.
Hello and welcome. I'm Chloe Thomas, the host of this Marketing Focus podcast. Now, if you're not familiar with our format, each month we focus on a different marketing method. Could be email or SEO or Facebook ads. And each week I interview a different expert to explore the latest advice on making it work for you. This month is all about content. And in this episode, we're going kind of big picture, a little bit futurology. I get to catch up with a marvelous marketer, Ian Leslie. I think we've recorded now 4 episodes together. We did 2 back when he was head of marketing at Industry West, a US furniture brand. And we've also done an episode when he was at Bolt talking about one-click checkout. He's now gone content crazy, and that's what we're going to be talking about. Kind of new world content strategies, what the SaaS world is doing that should be coming to the e-commerce world, a way in which you can beat the competition, increasing levels, embrace the need to put more creativity out there, and some kind of clever ways of doing it. So sit back, kind of relax in this one and let our thoughts and ideas wash over you, because it may just give you a cracking idea for next year. Make sure you listen right to the end of the episode, because we will be asking Ian our quick-fire insider tips, which are there to help you maximize the performance of your content. And he's got some cracking advice in that section. And I'll be sharing my take on it all, plus outlining even some more free ways we can help you improve your content even more. So make sure you stay tuned right to the end. This podcast is brought to you by Klaviyo, the email and SMS platform built just for e-commerce brands. If you're marketing an e-commerce brand, you already know that data changes everything. More data means more power. And if your email or SMS tools can't handle all that data, they're probably holding you back. That's where Klaviyo comes in. Its top-notch personalization and segmentation help you send the right message at the right time, guided by unlimited real-time data from your online store and tech stack. Request a demo at klaviyo.com/masterplan. That's KLAVIYO.com/masterplan. Today, I'm chatting with content expert Ian Leslie. Ian is the editor-in-chief at Banknotes, the media arm of creator marketing platform #Paid. Hello, Ian.
Hey, how are you? Good to talk to you again.
I am good. It's always lovely to get to chat with you. So I am excited we get to talk about something I don't think we've ever talked about content before.
No, I think it's like one of the rare things we haven't spoken about.
Yeah, because I think with the Industry West stuff, we got deep into a lot of marketing methods, but I don't think content came into it. So how have you ended up working in the world of content? How did you get into it?
Yeah, so my background actually out of school many years ago was in journalism. So I was kind of like an OG content person. It's originally what I got into. I was a writer, editor, and started to kind of get into digital marketing even on the journalism side, just as newspapers were starting to explore what content should look like on a digital platform. And then ultimately, that career path took me down many paths, ultimately, lead gen, demand gen on the higher ed side, over to D2C furniture brand, over to SaaS, and now leading a media content arm for a SaaS company. So yeah, everything kind of came full circle in terms of me being able to utilize my education and my training in journalism and actually creating content, and then ultimately kind of pivoting that with or kind of transitioning that or overlapping that with what I've learned on the e-commerce D2C software side of things in my now 21 years post college.
You've kind of got all the boxes ticked to create Banknotes, really, I guess, haven't you? You understand it from the SaaS perspective, you understand it from the retailer side perspective, and you've got that background in journalism.
Yeah, I mean, I do. And I think even taking it a step further is, when I started on the D2C e-commerce side, the company I was working for at the time, was smaller than the company I left. So it was, more of the S in an SMB. I know you always like to define my acronyms. So, so it was more the small on the side of a small, medium sized business. And then by the time I had left Industry West, we were, closer to the medium. So even seeing and the staff had grown, the budget had grown, the revenue had grown. So even within the e-commerce D2C side, I've been able to come at it from more of like a startup D2C kind of growth stage to even more like leaping out of that growth stage and trying to figure out growth and profitability as revenue grew and budget grew. So yeah, even like kind of more granular within the e-commerce side, I've sort of ticked a few boxes. But I that's why this position when I started, I guess it's almost been 6 months now, was so attractive to me because I've always enjoyed writing, always enjoyed content, always enjoyed the journalism aspect, and then to be able to kind of merge it with my e-commerce chops and my, just understanding SaaS world and technology world. Yeah, it's been good. There's benefits to being a generalist, I guess.
Yeah, it seems the rise of the generalist is coming back round again. But let's not get into that because that's a whole world of discussion.
Different podcast, yeah.
That's a different podcast. But I think what's really interesting is it's a strategy we hear talked about, but often in more the conceptual piece, and not so many businesses and brands are diving into it, which is really in taking content to a media channel level. So it's not like you put a blog post live every week, but the content becomes as important as the core business, which I've heard talked about as a good strategy in e-commerce, and I get the theory. And it's very interesting to me that a SaaS company like #paid they're not, you don't run the #paid blog, you run banknotes. So can you explain a bit more about the theory, this kind of new world content strategy, I guess, of going deep on the content side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to unpack there, and there's a lot of, layers to peel back on that onion, if you will. I mean, I think over the past 5 years as the space, and I'm going to try and kind of pivot this to both or align this both to SaaS and e-commerce, because I know your listenership is mostly e-com, is that there's been a lot of, as the space has gotten crowded, digital space has gotten crowded, e-commerce space has gotten crowded, cost per click has gone up, cost per impression has gone up. We have all these privacy issues, not privacy issues, but privacy restrictions across iOS and Facebook and all that. And the cookie apocalypse, as people like to call it. A lot of the Twitter echo chamber has kind of spout out like, well, just own your audience, just create your own media brand, create your own content, engine, and then just own your audience. And therefore you never have to worry about, top of funnel coming in from all these other channels and how much it costs and everything, which is a lot easier said than done. I mean, you need, it's first of all, I mean, you need the staff to do that. You need the talent to do that. You need the content to do that. You need vision from the leadership to enable a team to do that, right? Because that's that's a long-term play, like especially on the e-commerce side of, not every piece of content turns into a sale that day, like, maybe a Facebook ad does. So it's a longer term play. So it's not easy for everyone to do that. And I've always found it sort of annoying where you have these like talking heads on Twitter that are like, well, just own your audience, just create a media arm. It's as easy as that. Well, it's like, give me a break. That costs money and that costs time and effort, initiative. And not every vertical is inclined to have to be able to create that media arm. For the SaaS kind of strategy around it is credibility, thought leadership, and just generally being. And what I really love about what I do and what Banknotes is that we're a tech brand agnostic media site. So you see a lot of quote unquote media sites out there tied to SaaS that are, written for keywords. Every article has 5 CTAs that try to drive you back to a demo of the platform. And that's just like, it's horrible. Like no one wants to share that content. No one wants to read that content. It really doesn't provide any value to the reader or to the customer or to the platform. So I mean, I think what's great is with banknotes is, even since I've started, is it was just banknotes, and now it's a little bit more kind of branded towards paid. So it's banknotes minted by #paid, which is like a nice little play on words there. And then also, like, the way it's structured is we do have, we share a domain. So therefore, like, we're bringing in the right readership that paid wants to market to. So ultimately, like, I'm gathering those clicks, I'm gathering those views, I'm gathering those email addresses, and ultimately the paid team can go off and remarket to those if they so choose. But that's not my concern. Like, my concern isn't driving pipeline or driving, the top of the funnel. My concern is just bringing in the right audience, the right mid-market, primarily e-commerce audience, to read our content, to see banknotes and see paid as just a credible authority on everything e-com, retail, creator economy, et cetera. So, I mean, I think it's really been interesting, and it's been super fruitful. And I think, like I said, I mean, so much of it is just having the leadership up top to stand behind the vision. And I think there's a lot of applications that are there on the e-com side as well.
Well, you said about, it's about thought leadership and authority in the sector and earning the trust of the audience. And it's like, well, that's exactly the same as an e-commerce brand is trying to do to their audience, to their customer base, is to bring them in. And I like, I think the way when you were saying about this isn't creating content for SEO keywords, this is creating content that people want to read, that is useful to them. And I think that's kind of the fundamental shift in approach, to my mind, of how you go, well, is that site doing a media arm, for want of a better term, or are they doing some SEO content stuff?
Right.
That's the key thing, is like, it's not content for rankings, it's content for the quality of the content. It's when you go, what do our customers actually care about? What do they need to know about? And it's really investing in that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think 100%. I mean, I think blogs to an extent are very old school. Blogs are very self-serving. Blogs are just another channel to get owned content, owned storytelling out there that is different than corporate comms. So, like, on a different site, someone's going to put up like whatever they raise in their Series A or B or C on the e-commerce side. But, maybe they're going to want to say they donated 500 somethings to a shelter, or they, and so that becomes this blog content, which is nice, but it's like, what value is it really providing? It's a bit self-serving, and it's not really setting up. And it's almost just feeding into the perceived altruism of that company, which is a whole other thing. And so, I mean, I think with this, it's like, in an example, like, knowing we're going to talk about this, like, I think a really cool example is Ridge Wallet. I don't know if you're familiar with that brand, or if your listeners are, but they have these really cool wallets. They do some knives. They do like some iPhone cases and that sort of thing, but like really hardy material. They have the whole RFID protection bit where, your credit cards can't get read. And it's just like it's a very rustic feel, where like kind of pivoted toward the outdoor space, people who carry knives, carry, harder wallets, that sort of thing. And so they acquired a site called Everyday Carry, which is, a media site that goes into tactical knives, tactical watches, diver watches, the best pens for outdoor people. And I think the Everyday Carry site has, like, their Twitter account has, I mean, just looking real quick, I think it's like 200,000 followers. So they acquired that media brand because it's an extension of Ridge Wallet that just simply makes sense. Like, I have a Ridge Wallet, like, I'm in that sort of culture, people, like, I'm an outdoor sort of guy. I want products that hold up, that sort of thing. And so Ridge Wallet, through that extension of this media brand, is giving me that content that's like, oh, that's interesting. And I go back to Ridge Wallet as like an authority on this outside of just the one product. And it's stuck. I mean, it sticks. Like, I mean, Ridge Wallet is such a sticky brand. Like, both my kids have Ridge Wallets now. Like, they because dad has it and they like it and whatever. So yeah, it's super interesting. And I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think just we've gotten to such a point where, authenticity across all pieces of content, whether it's, media site or TikTok or any of these other things, authenticity matters. And people see through the SEO content, people see through the blog post that is, filled with CTAs for demos, and it just gets as annoying as the cold emails and the cold LinkedIn DMs.
I love the fact you've brought up an example where they bought, a content site and bought it into the business. Because some people are going, oh my God, that much content. How do we even start? It's like, no, you don't have to. You could go and buy in something,
right,
which often is not as expensive as you think it's going to be. And it opens it up to, you don't necessarily need to buy them. You could build a big partnership. We recorded with Colin McIntosh from Sheets and Giggles, went live on eCommerce Master Plan a few weeks, possibly a month ago. And he was talking about his weird marketing strategy, which is he sponsors a big basketball podcast. And they've gone deep into, they pay for them to go to specific games, so they can create the content of it, so they get loads of name mentions. Sheets and Giggles sells sheets, everybody. So it's not an obvious link to basketball, but let's face it, all of us need sheets. So in some ways it is. And they've gone deep into getting involved with that community and feeling like they're part of that community. And their Twitter account is now almost entirely about that community. And it's working so well for them. They are now trying to find, and essentially because Colin, the owner of the business, is very passionate about basketball. So it's a big twist on creating your own media arm. It's kind of just borrowing someone else's, or I guess in the old school way, we could say it's activating a sponsorship. But it's that high quality content, that integration across community to then build the brand that way. And they're now looking for other members of the team's favorite podcast to see if they can replicate it. Whether they can replicate it or not, I'm not sure. But I think the point I'm trying to make is there are lots of ways you can do this without having to hire an editor-in-chief.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, on the acquisition side, I know HubSpot rather, they acquired The Hustle, which was interesting. But then I take a step back and there's a podcast and daily and website and daily email called Front Office Sports that I subscribe to, which is all things sports business. And they do a really good job on focusing on a lot of soccer financials as well. And I'm a soccer fan. But it's all things sports business, and it's like a must read for me. I definitely check it out. I'd say of all the newsletters I'm subscribed to, I read it probably amongst the most. But I just recently realized that it's either sponsored by or a product of Shopify, that they're closely aligned with Shopify, which I really didn't realize. And I think it makes sense. You have a lot of entrepreneurs, SMB entrepreneurs who are very, sports, crosses all verticals and are very, into sports and want to know all the sports news and whatever. And then okay, well, we're just going to pop Shopify in front of you. So it's Front Office Sports presented by or sponsored by Shopify. And I think it's more than just a sponsorship, but I think they have some hand in it. But yeah, I think there's lots of potential there to, you don't have to go out and create all your own content. You can align yourself with, good content. I know in the SaaS space, we're all sort of, that's a big push too, right? Just Triple Whale is doing a great job of that, of just bringing in a lot of different content partners. I'm actually going to be looking, to bring on sponsors of what we're doing, hopefully we can provide value to other SaaS companies out there that aren't, able to create their own media, mechanisms, that we have a good audience, we have a good viewership and listenership, and that we can provide sponsorships and get other SaaS platforms out there in front of other people in different verticals. So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there, and I think it's interesting to have seen it grow. And I think we've gone away from in this kind of media space, a little bit away from Medium. Medium was going to be a big thing, and then there were all these other ones, these micro newsletters, and then Twitter's got talking about newsletter functionality and all that. And now we're just kind of going into a little bit more just own your own media and own your own emails and all that. And it's super interesting.
It isn't. I like the fact you brought up the then getting advertising revenue for your media platform, because I think that's, you mentioned about the Ridge wallet. It was Ridge, wasn't it?
Yeah. Ridge
wallet. So they've bought a content site that's very closely aligned with them. I bet that content site had advertising. Mm-hmm. So in many ways, it becomes a self-funded content team that then just drives a load of traffic and a load of sales to you. So it becomes much greater than the original part. And there's no reason why, if you're building a content arm, you can't start taking, sponsorship on that too. So I think it's a really interesting realm, not least because if you're taking sponsorship as an e-commerce brand, I bet your margin's better on your sponsorship and your advertising than it is on your products.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So it de-risks the business a little bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of potential there. I would keep an eye on like Chris Mead over at CrossNet and what they're doing. I mean, it makes a ton of sense. Like he's building up an empire of product there, and then a lot of like great media stuff, and even aligning a lot with like on the NIL piece with athletes. I think like eventually, like he's going to have like just some sort of huge media presence. I could see him building that because that whole CrossNet like space and who he's marketing to. Like there's so much potential there for different drinks and different snacks and different, outdoor wear and everything where he can like bring in revenue from other e-commerce brands and other D2C brands and get their eyes in front of, get his audience's eyes in front of their products. Like, so he's building like something amazing there with a great audience. And I think like, yeah, to your point, there's a ton of potential out there for, to kind of work together for different e-commerce brands.
Yeah, definitely. There we go, guys. We're trying to give you some inspiration here. I will make sure we add the link to Chris Mead from CrossNet's latest content activities because, guys, you should all be subscribed. He shares so much in his newsletter and podcast. So I'll make sure we put those in the show notes. Thanks for all of that, Ian. It's been very cool kind of going massively big picture and future-y in this episode. Listeners, remember to stay tuned right to the end so you don't miss out on Ian's insider tips on content and my suggestions for more resources to help you improve things even further in your business. This podcast is brought to you by Klaviyo, the email and SMS platform built just for e-commerce brands. If you're marketing an e-commerce brand, you already know that data changes everything. More data means more power. And if your email or SMS tools can't handle all that data, they're probably holding you back. That's where Klaviyo comes in. Its top-notch personalization and segmentation help you send the right message at the right time, guided by unlimited real-time data from your online store and tech stack. Request a demo at klaviyo.com/masterplan. That's KLAVIYO.com/masterplan. Okay, Ian, so far we've gone deep into, I guess, new world content strategies, going massively big with content. Now you get to wow us with your insider knowledge about the whole world of content and let's say e-commerce too. So for the following questions, your answer can be about anything you fancy. I'll be honest, I'll give you that level of freedom, which of course does include everything we've already been talking about. So Ian, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Okay, let's start with newbie advice. If we've inspired someone to take their first step, what do they need to know to give themselves the best chance of success?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, twofold, I would say is identify your audience, right? Like, well, what's the segment you're going after? Is the content and the media side is no different than anything else you're doing on the product side. So taking this strictly from, and product being SaaS or e-commerce, right? It's all product in the end. So, I mean, what is the segment you're going after? What are they interested in? Who's that audience and what kind of content will resonate with them? So, I mean, I think that's really the first thing the first step you have to figure out is audience, segment, and then the types of content. So kind of, I think we've talked about this in the past, some in terms of social media, but like people always ask me, do I have to be on all the channels? Like you don't have to be on all the channels. You have to understand where your audience is, what channels they're on, and those are the channels you have to be on. So like we talk media, is it articles? Is it video? Is it podcasting? Is it, what kinds of articles, short form, long form? So there's a lot to unpack there, but I think really the first step is just don't go buckshot at it, but rather really drill down on who the audience is and what the kind of content they like to ingest is. Yeah,
we might be talking big strategies, guys, but the basics remain. You need to know your customers. Exactly. Now, once you've started, of course, you've got to keep optimizing. So what's your favorite way to improve performance?
Yeah, I mean, I think we go back to literally like you just said, we may be talking big picture, but the basics remain the same. Is like what I'm doing is not an SEO play per se, but make sure your SEO is right. Like make sure, like for me, like there was when I started, there was, there was some tech debt that I had to account for, whether it be like RSS feed issues or sitemap issues or whatever. But like, if you're coming out with content, like, no, you don't want to be an inauthentic SEO play, but that doesn't mean you don't want Google to be to be crawling your stuff and to be looking at your stuff properly. So like, one of the easiest ways is like, and I know you've talked to my friend Justin Seibert before on here, but like, this is somewhere where I engaged Justin and I was like, dude, this isn't like, Google's not picking up my stuff. Like, what's going on? And we did a quick audit and there was some not, and I definitely want to like explain here, like, and I had to explain it to our leadership. I didn't have to explain it, but I just stated to my leadership, like, I'm not bringing someone on to handle SEO. I'm handling the tech debt that is not allowing us to optimize for SEO. And so I think like that is something like, yeah, just check that, like check the basics. I think so many people are just, sometimes they're just ignoring the basics of like, so get into Search Console, see, make sure everything is working out, so that's when you're dealing with content, at least the type of content we're putting out. I think that's like, that's table stakes.
Yeah, definitely. We're definitely not saying ignore SEO 100%.
No, yeah.
If someone listening wants to learn more about all we've been talking about, is there one cheap or free resource you'd recommend?
So, I was thinking about this more of like a resource I use as opposed to like kind of learning about all this, but there's a lot of great resources, particularly if you're looking to turn interviews into articles. I use like Otter AI for my as we do audio articles or we do podcasts to turn those into transcripts. And the thing that goes to optimizing too is like, if you have an audio piece, make sure you're transcribing it and make sure you're putting the transcript into like whatever you're using to upload your audio to your channels. So I'm going to think that's like one tool I use is Otter AI. It just makes it easy for me to take, audio and video and transcribe that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the awesome ones, isn't it? So that's OTTER.ai. Anyone who wants to go and dive into that one, because yes, you don't have to listen back and make all the notes again. You can just make Otter AI turn it into text. There's some light bulbs going off with people right now on that one. Finally, it's crystal ball time. What's coming up in the next 6 to 12 months we should be getting ready for?
Wow,
big question.
I feel like this is like the question right at the end, and like if I knew, probably pretty rich. What is the content or what's coming up in the next 6 to 12 months? I think it's going to be more of the same, and it's going to be more across just more channels. I think there's just what I think is super interesting is how like traditional media arms are starting to engage more non-traditional channels, and I think we as e-com SaaS companies need to, being the non-traditional arms, like we need to be we need to be out front of that, and we need to be the ones setting the trends. So whether it be just more across TikTok, more across keeping abreast of like what's going on with Instagram and Facebook, but I think it's just more content across so many different channels. I really don't know in terms of like what we're talking about in this media content arm, like that anything like crazy is going to happen. I just think it's going to be, I do think like one thing is that the companies, particularly on the SaaS side, the companies that are maintaining this like corporate comms, blog, media, SEO heavy play, I mean, they're just going to fall by the wayside. Like it's going to be a race to the bottom in terms of acquisition. It's just not going to work. It's a waste of resources and time. And those teams that are there to support that in this poor economy are probably going to be the first to get cut, as we've kind of seen to an extent already. So I'm going to think it's just being creative and figuring out the way to be creative, provide value, and just create good content.
Love it. Yeah, it's a hard to predict one at the minute, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Ian, we are very nearly at the end of the show. So could you please let the listeners know where they can find you and your business?
Yeah, sure. So I am on Twitter at IRLeslie, which is always where I like to point people. Banknotes is, of course, our website, and it's banknotes.co if you're looking for us, or if it's easier, read banknotes.com. And from there, you can see all of our content and get our podcasts and webinars and all that. And then you can also find #paid online, #paid.com.
Excellent. Very nicely done. Ian, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It's lovely to kind of go big thinking on the show. So thank you so much for coming on and doing that.
Yeah, of course. Thanks.
Okay, so some massive strategic thoughts going on there. And I think the really big thing here is as we see competition levels go up, as we see the whole privacy thing dropping down and being less of a friend to us, the connection you can build with your customer base, whether that's under your own brand or under a side brand that's more about content, is going to be key. And there are many ways to do this, through partnerships, through influencers, through great email or great YouTube or something else. But one of the other ways might be about creating this media arm that is all about, providing the great content. You look at the number of famous, kind of cooks and recipe writers who now have e-commerce lines. You see the magazines getting into having stores and marketplaces. It's kind of the reverse of that. And there are a lot of different ways you can do it. So this is one of those topics to kind of brainstorm on. And it's not about hiring a load of content people yourself necessarily, but there's a big opportunity there to separate yourself from the competition if it's something you can do. Now you can get links to everything we discussed, the full transcript of the episode, important notes and more at keepoptimizing.com. And that, as always, is spelled with an S, not a Z. You can also use our new direct to episode links. Just put keepopt.com, so keepopt.com/episode number into the URL bar, and you'll go straight to the correct episode page for this episode. And we've set that up for every episode on the show. And once you get to the website, you can also add yourself to our email list so you don't miss out on any of the other things I share to help you improve your business. And if you want to hear that proper curveball marketing strategy and me chatting about that with Colin from Sheets and Giggles, that's over on our sister podcast, eCommerce Master Plan, episode 410. Now, I know I've given you a lot of other episodes to listen to in this one, so don't forget you'll find those all on our website. So keepopt.com/this episode number. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Keep Optimizing podcast. If you've enjoyed it, then just scroll through our feed wherever you are listening and check out our other content marketing episodes, because we have from the hugely tactical to the hugely strategic to the big mind-bending ones like this one. There's plenty already on the feed for you to have a listen to. And please do tell your fellow marketers about the show, because I want to help as many marketers as possible to improve the performance of their e-commerce marketing. Have a great week, and make sure you listen to our next episode so I can help you to keep optimizing your marketing.
Access everything Keep Optimizing at keepoptimizing.com. That's with an S, not a Z.